In the days after their first meeting, Marco often found himself thinking about that man in the park. It was as if his mind had finally found a voice that reflected a doubt that had never been expressed, but was always there. His words, so simple, had shaken something inside him. He couldn't help but wonder how that man had come to such an awareness. Curiosity began to mix with a new desire, to discover how to live a life that wasn't just a marathon towards an unattainable goal. If you've ever wondered how to find some peace in a hectic life, subscribe to our channel for more stories that can guide you on your journey. One evening, after a long day at work, Marco decided to return to the park. He didn't know if he would find that man again, but something pushed him to look for him. When he arrived, he found him sitting in exactly the same place, with the same serene look that had struck him the first time. Marco approached, and without too many words, sat down next to him. The man smiled and said, "Welcome back. I knew we would see each other again." Marco, slightly surprised, replied, "How do you know? I wasn't sure I would come back either." When people start looking for something other than the frantic race, they often can't help but go back to where they found some peace, the man said with a calm that seemed impossible to shake. Have you ever felt like you had to stop the race of your life? Leave a comment and share your experience. This time, Marco wanted to know more. Who are you really? What do you do for a living? You seem so at peace, like you found all the answers. The man introduced himself as Giovanni. He told his story, and for the first time, Marco truly understood what it meant to fall prey to the unsustainable pace of modernity. Giovanni, 10 years earlier, had been one of the most respected executives in a large technology company. He was exactly like Marco, perhaps even worse. He worked more than 15 hours a day, traveled constantly, and every success brought him only the desire to achieve an even greater one. He had everything: a big house, a brilliant career, a family. But he never stopped. Then, one day, while on a business trip, Giovanni suffered a serious accident. Nothing fatal, but enough to stop him physically. Immobilized for months, he was forced to slow down for the first time in years. It was during that time that he began to reflect on how much he had lost in that crazy race. His wife left him. His relationship with his children was practically non-existent, and his mental health was compromised. It was then that Giovanni decided to change his life. It was not an easy decision, Giovanni explained, but it was a necessary decision. I left everything. I sold the house, quit my job, and moved into a small apartment. Since then, I have lived with little, but I live fully. Marco listened, enchanted by Giovanni's story. It seemed almost impossible to him that someone could make such a radical choice, and yet Giovanni was there in front of him, and he seemed happier than anyone he had ever met. If you too feel that your life is becoming unbearable, stop for a moment and think about it. Find the courage to make a small change. But not everyone can leave everything, Marco said, trying to justify his resistance to change. I can't just walk away from my job and my life. Giovanni looked at him intently. You don't have to do that. What you have to do is figure out what's destroying you, what's taking you away from yourself. I chose to leave everything because that's what I needed. But everyone has their own path. The key is learning to stop even for a moment and ask yourself, am I really living or am I just running? Marco began to think about that question. Back at work, he couldn't help but watch himself as he went from one meeting to another, answered emails without a break, made phone calls between breaks. The feeling of being a machine rather than a human began to creep in. One day, during lunch with some colleagues, one of them, Davide, took him aside. Davide had always seemed to have everything under control: a successful job, an active social life, a happy family. But today he had a different expression. Marco noticed it right away. Can I talk to you for a moment? Davide asked, his tone unusually serious. They sat down in a coffee shop away from the others. Davide began to tell his story. I know we all seem in control, Marco, but I assure you, we're not. I'm struggling too. The work, the expectations, the pace. I'm losing control of my life, and I started seeing a psychologist. He told me I have symptoms of burnout. Marco was surprised. He would never have imagined that Davide, so apparently balanced, was experiencing the same internal torment. I tell you this because I see that you too are on the verge of collapsing, Davide continued. We have to find a way to change things, or we will pay the price. I do not want to reach the point of no return, and neither should you. Those words hit Marco with the same force as Giovanni's reflections. Now he saw that he was not alone. The others around him were also running without stopping, and like him, they were paying a very high price. If you too feel like you are on the verge of burnout, seek help. Don't wait until you hit rock bottom. Share your experience in the comments. One night, while tossing and turning in bed, Marco realized that he had to do something concrete. He could no longer ignore reality. He got up and went to the computer. He looked for meditation and mindfulness courses in his city. He was skeptical, but something pushed him to try. He decided to sign up for a weekly course, convinced that at least 1 hour a week could do him good. When he started the course, Marco found himself immersed in an environment completely different from the one he was used to. The first sessions were difficult. His mind wouldn't stop racing. He couldn't concentrate. He felt a constant need to check his phone. But gradually, that mental frenzy began to calm down. The real change happened one afternoon, during one of the guided meditations. Marco felt for the first time in years an inner peace that he couldn't explain. It wasn't a euphoric sensation, but a deep calm, as if he had finally found a safe harbor within himself. He understood that he didn't need to escape from his job or his life to find serenity. He just needed to change the way he lived each day. Do you want to try a mindfulness course too? Find a practice near you and start your journey towards greater awareness. The weeks passed and Marco began to bring this new awareness into his daily life. He learned to take conscious breaks, to say no to commitments that were not really necessary, to make choices that prioritized his well-being rather than the continuous race towards an indefinite goal. And he understood something fundamental. The rhythm of modern life could not destroy him if he decided not to be a slave to it. Marco did not suddenly become a sage or a spiritual master. He continued to face the challenges of modern life, but now he did so with a new awareness. He had learned that life is not just a race towards success, but a journey made of moments of presence, balance, and inner listening. Remember, the key to a fulfilling life is not in the race towards success, but in the ability to find peace within yourself. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that can inspire you on your journey.